You've heard the word 1,000 times. Inflation.
Politicians blame it for everything. Economists argue about how to measure it.
Your parents complain that things were cheaper back in their day.
But if you actually stop and ask yourself, what is inflation, really?
The answer gets surprisingly slippery. Most people will tell you it's when prices go up, and that's not wrong.
But it's incomplete. Because inflation isn't just about prices rising. It's about money losing value. And once you understand that distinction, the entire economy starts to look different.
You begin to see why your salary never quite keeps up, why saving feels pointless, why the gap between rich and poor keeps widening, even as governments promise prosperity for all. Inflation isn't a mysterious force of nature. It's a mechanism, and someone, somewhere, benefits every time it happens.
Let's start simple. Imagine you live in a small village. There are 100 people and exactly 100 gold coins in circulation. Every week, the baker sells 10 loaves of bread. Because money is scarce and people need bread, a loaf costs 1 gold coin. Supply and demand, basic economics. Now imagine that one day, a stranger arrives with a bag containing another 100 gold coins.
Suddenly, there were 200 coins, but still only 10 loaves of bread each week. What happens?
People have more money to spend, so they're willing to pay more. The baker, seeing demand surge, raises his price to 2 gold coins per loaf. The bread hasn't changed. The labor hasn't changed, but the price has doubled.
Why? Because the value of each coin has been cut in half. That's inflation. Not prices going up, money going down.
Now, replace the village with a country. Replace gold coins with dollars, euros, or yen. Replace the stranger with a central bank that can create money with a keystroke. The principle is identical.
When the money supply increases faster than the supply of goods and services, each unit of currency buys less.
Your paycheck might say the same number, but what it can actually purchase shrinks. This is why your grandparents talk about buying a house for $20,000. We're filling a car with gas for 50 cents. The dollars didn't become weaker by accident. They were deliberately diluted, year after year, decade after decade, until the currency you hold today is a shadow of what it once was.
But here's where it gets more complicated and more interesting. Inflation doesn't hit everyone equally. It's not a rising tide that lifts all boats. It's more like a flood that drowns some while others ride it to higher ground. The first people to receive newly created money, governments, banks, large corporations, get to spend it before prices have adjusted.
They buy assets, hire workers, invest in projects, all at yesterday's prices. By the time that money trickles down to you, the person working a regular job or living on a fixed income, prices have already risen.
You're getting the money last, after it's lost value. Economists have a term for this.
The Cantillon Effect, named after an 18th century Irish-French economist who noticed that inflation benefits those closest to the source of new money and punishes those farthest away. It's not a bug, it's a feature. This explains a paradox that confuses a lot of people. How can the stock market hit record highs while ordinary families struggle to pay rent? How can billionaires double their wealth during a recession while food banks see lines around the block? The answer is inflation, specifically asset price inflation. When central banks create money and push it into the financial system, it doesn't go into wages. It goes into stocks, real estate, bonds, and other assets. People who own those assets get richer, on paper at least, while people who rely on salaries see their purchasing power erode. The wealth gap isn't widening because the rich are working harder or because the poor are lazy. It's widening because inflation, by design, transfers wealth from people who hold currency to people who hold assets. This is why every major inflation crisis in history follows the same script. Weimar Germany in the 1920s, Zimbabwe in the 2000s, Venezuela in the 2010s. The details differ, but the story is identical. A government faces a crisis. War debt, collapsing production, political instability. Tax revenues fall short. Borrowing becomes difficult or impossible. So the government turns to the printing press. At first, the new money seems like a solution. It pays salaries, funds programs, keeps the lights on. But as more money floods the system, prices begin to climb. Workers demand higher wages to keep up.
Businesses raise prices to cover costs. The government prints even more to meet the new demands.
And the cycle accelerates into a death spiral, where money becomes worthless faster than it can be spent. So what can you actually do about this? You can't stop governments from printing money. You have no chance of changing central bank policies. But you can change your perspective. Because once you understand that inflation isn't some random occurrence, that it's mostly a transfer of value from the majority to a minority, you stop playing by their rules. You start to develop a different approach to where you hold your wealth. You realize why saving cash feels like running up a down escalator. And you start asking the questions most people never ask, like, who actually wins when prices go up? And why does the system need inflation? Inflation isn't just an economic condition. It's a mirror, reflecting the flow of power, money, and trust within a society. And the better you grasp this, the harder you become to control by that system. Because knowledge is an advantage, and in a world built on debt, that advantage is everything.
If this video helped you understand the system a little better, then subscribe. What we're doing here is breaking down the illusions one by one, so you can stop being a player in their game and start understanding your own.
In the next episode, we'll take another step forward to find out who the real winners of the global debt story are. You won't want to miss it. I'll always be here, and I invite you all to keep watching this channel, my friends.